Describe Istanbul in one word. History. What else? Masajid. Interesting. I like this. What else? Culture. One word. What else? Sultanate Uthmani is 2 words. Ottoman Sultanate. Kebabs. You're a man of my own heart and my stomach. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. One word used is masjids. You know how ironic it is that you describe Istanbul with masjids? Because Istanbul was the capital of Christianity for over 1,200 years. And it was just Allah's Qadr that we now visit Istanbul and we associate it with Islam, the Ottoman Caliphate, Khilafah, history, civilization. If you had visited Istanbul for most of human history, forget masajid, there would be 0 Muslims living there. Istanbul was the heart of the European Empire, Constantinople. And it is one of Allah's gifts to the Muslim Ummah. But today we're going to go a different story. A candidate that might have been like Istanbul, but it is not Istanbul. It is the other city that, what if we had gone there, it would have been another Istanbul. And we were literally 1 hair's width away. But Allah's Qadr. And I like to teach you history as it is. Most people only want to teach you the ups of history. But I don't think we're going to learn history that way. Sometimes we have to teach you some of the negatives so that we contextualize, we understand. And out of all of the Islamic history, 2 battles, 2 incidents are those what-if moments that we didn't get. The majority we got. Qadisiyya we got. The Sassanid Empire, the Byzantine Empire, Istanbul, Constantinople. The majority, yes, check. But sometimes we didn't. And it's also important to know those as well, so that we understand this is the reality, that Allah will preserve the ummah even if we lose some battles here and there. The ummah will thrive. We don't have to gain every single battle. 2 battles, in my opinion, are decisive, that what if we had one would have changed the course of history. The first of them we'll just mention, we're not going to go over, and that is the Battle of Tours. The Battle of Tours represents the furthest point in Europe that the Umayyad Empire entered after they conquered Andalus. Tours is a city, it is literally 45 minutes from Paris. Imagine 45 minutes from Paris by car, there is a city called Tours. Last year, they excavated that region and they uncovered Muslim graves dating back to 770 CE. They knew they were Muslim graves because they're facing the Qibla, the head is buried this way in shrouds, how Muslims are buried. Muslims lived right outside of Paris. And the Umayyad Empire conquered all of Andalusia. They conquered Madrid. The king of Madrid, I visited his palace. I want you, next time you go to Madrid, you go underneath. There's a back door. You go behind the palace and you will find the actual remains of the Umayyad governor who ruled Andalus from Madrid. The remains are there. King Juan's palace is built on those remains. How symbolic. The Battle of Tours went all the way up through Andalus, all the way to Europe, until it got to almost Paris. And then the Umayyad Khalifa died, and he said, the next guy said, guys, sorry, I'm not interested in your warfare on the other side of the world, come back home. One of those what-if moments. If the Muslims have gone on, what would have happened, Allah knows. That's one story, maybe another day we'll talk about that. Today we're going to do another story that is rarely discussed, but it is also a what-if moment. And in fact, it is a far bigger what-if moment, because we really were just one quarter of an inch from capturing, from moving on. And that is the magnificent city of Vienna. Vienna. Vienna, and what will make you understand what is Vienna? Vienna, anybody who visits it now, and I visited it a few months ago, I was in awe. I have traveled to hundreds of cities. Without exception, Vienna is in the top 5 cities I have visited in my life in terms of just historic beauty. Unbelievable, the architecture, the magnificence, the culture, the arts, the civilization. We forget what Vienna was. Vienna was the capital of European empires. The Roman emperor lived in Vienna for centuries. The Habsburg dynasty was the most powerful dynasty of Europe for many centuries. History is weird. These massive dynasties are forgotten by later generations. That's one of the lessons of history. A name that was a household name is no longer even known to the average household. But the Ottomans were well aware. And the Ottomans, Allah blessed them to conquer so much. They conquered all of Anatolia, which is now Turkey. Then they conquered Constantinople, which is onto the European side. They turned it to Istanbul. And then they continued onwards. Sulaiman al-Fatih continued conquering. He conquered Bosnia. I gave a lecture about Bosnia a few months ago. He went into Bulgaria and he conquered portions of Bulgaria and Hungary. There are mosques in Bulgaria to this day that date back 700 years, 600 years, Sulaiman al-Fatih's time. Bulgaria still has a small Muslim population from the time of the Ottoman Turks. And once Sulaiman al-Fatih conquered all of those regions, he said, let me try Vienna. Vienna was attempted twice. The first of them was haphazard. The second was what we're primarily going to discuss. The haphazard one, Sulaiman al-Fatih. When it wasn't the aim was Balkans, the aim was Bulgaria. Success, success, success. He's like, why not try the big prize, Vienna? And so, Sulaiman al-Fatih, in 1529, Sulaiman the Magnificent decided to try Vienna one time, the first time. And he marched to Vienna and laid siege to Vienna for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, short time. And the rainy season came. His troops didn't have enough food, and he realized this is not going to work. He discovered something that later we should have known and realized. Vienna's walls are some of the most fortified walls in all of Europe. Why? Because Vienna, as we said, was the capital of the Habsburg dynasty and where the Roman emperor lived for many centuries. And they realized its importance. It was the cultural and intellectual and political capital in the 14th, 15th, 16th centuries. After the fall of Constantinople had already gone into the decline. That's one of the reasons why the Ottomans were able to capture it. Constantinople began the decline, and when it was already down, Allah allowed the Ottomans to get it. Vienna was on the rise. And when Sulaiman the Magnificent laid siege, he realized that I cannot really do this. I don't have the weapons, the troops, the food. So 2 weeks, he gave up, he goes back. 100 years, the Ottomans kept on thinking, because they now have Constantinople, they have Bulgaria, they have the Balkans. What's the next big prize? Vienna, Austria, the Habsburg Empire. This is the opening to the rest of all of Europe. If they can get Vienna, then all of Central Europe will fall after that. And then after that, you will get to the Western Europe. And so, in the time of the 17th century, the Vizier, Kara Mustafa Pasha was his name, decided, I will make a name for myself and I will conquer Vienna. And so he asked permission from the Sultan, and he asked for an exorbitant sum, and he mustered the largest army the Ottomans had seen in their entire history, a staggering 180,000 men. In that time and age, this was an army that nobody could beat. And this is why this is such a sad story, because everything you would think, check, 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 check. The largest army ever. There was no way another army could fight 180,000. Also remember, Europe at the time was not the EU. Europe was dozens of small little kingdoms, fiefdoms. تحسبهم جميعا وقلوبهم شتى. They were disunited. each little country, each little dynasty, each little monarchy. And now there's a civil war going on in Europe. The Catholics against the Protestants, against the Huguenots, against others. All of this is beginning at this stage. And so they are very far from united. And the Ottomans realize this is our time. So Kara Mustafa Pasha realizes that this is the time to do so. And he musters, as we said, almost 180,000 troops. And he marches on to Vienna. And this is in 1683. So 120 years after Suleiman. 1683. And how many warriors does Vienna have? In opposition to 180,000, make a guess. How many soldiers in Vienna? Guess. 50? 10? It's a bit too low, but you're not too far off. 20. 20,000. Vienna had 20,000. And the Ottomans had 180. You would think this is a no-brainer. You would think on top of that, when Kara Mustafa Pasha marches on and he's about to reach Vienna and the emperor hears about the army, the emperor does what Roman emperors do. He takes his wife and his family and his gold and he runs away. Can you imagine the emperor abandons Vienna? What do you think the morale will be of the people? The emperor fled for his life. He didn't want to be captured. And so he abandons the city to another lieutenant. Here, you take charge. I don't want to fight. I don't want to be with you guys. Can you imagine the morale? And many families, the elite, the rich, they fled. They gave up. And who remained? The poor. The people who had no option. But see, desperation leads to what? Fortification, courage, bravery. The ones who had nowhere to go and they would have been killed or sold, they are the ones that are left. And so everybody that remains becomes a volunteer soldier as well. So along with the 20,000, now every single person that remains becomes an active aid and helper. What do you expect is going to happen, right? And Kara Mustafa Pasha comes, and now here we get to a bit of a sensitive thing. Obviously, listen, history is always subjective. How do we describe Kara Mustafa Pasha? If you use adjectives that are not noble, some people get irritated. And if you use too, grandiose adjectives, well, that also isn't true. We leave his affair to Allah. Let's just say most historians say there was an element of arrogance and confidence and yaqeen that there is no way I'm going to get lost over here. That was one of the major causes of downfall. And subhanAllah, if you had studied history, you know in the Battle of Tabuk what happened. Sorry, not in the Battle of Tabuk, the Battle of Hunayn, sorry, the Battle of Hunayn, not Tabuk, so scratch that. The Battle of Hunayn, what happened? Allah says in the Quran, in the Battle of Hunayn, إِذْ أَعْجَبَتْكُمْ كَثْرَتُكُمْ. You thought your numbers would do the job. فَلَمْ تُغْنِ عَنْكُمْ شَيْئًا. It was of no use to you. It is as if that same lesson was repeated. Because every single indication seems to be Kara Mustafa Pasha wanted this so badly, he messed up at multiple levels. And the main cause, in hindsight 2020, was his overconfidence. There is no way I'm not going to get Vienna. And he made blunders that in hindsight are so obvious, but at the time, nobody's pointing them out. Of them, in his arrogance, and maybe there's an element of truth to this in the sense, I'm not saying this was wrong. When you are the conqueror, when you are the other side, you have to demonstrate a confidence, right? That confidence can be interpreted as arrogance. So one of the things he did when he camped outside the city, he built so that the city could see, so the city, you have to realize, the city is a fortress, right? Even if you have 100,000 people, you still don't have the cannons that can go through the fortress at this stage. It's still too early. It's 1683. Cannons have not yet been developed to destroy the city walls. So even if you have 100,000, what you have to do is starve the people into submission. It's almost impossible to charge into the city because of the multiple layers. So the goal was to surround the city and to starve them out. Siege, that was the goal. So a part of that tactic is to taunt the people in the city. So what would he do? He built a magnificent silk tent and palace and house for himself. And in the middle that the people could see was a golden fountain. They don't have water inside the city. You can imagine now, water, food, everything. They're literally dying. It is said they had to eat rats at the end of this time frame. It is a very, there's the reality of war. And outside of the city, Kara Mustafa Pasha has a gold fountain with water trickling down, delectable delights every day. He's eating it in front of them to taunt them that this is difference between us and you. And this is a tactic of war as well, by the way, right? And he's wearing the finest clothing, being massaged, everything. He's living a VVVIP luxury while the people inside can see and they're starving. There's an element of like fine balance. Is this arrogance? Is this confidence? Whatever it might be. And on top of this, one of the biggest problems that he had, hindsight again, this is 2020, in order to maintain the city and not damage the inside, he refused to charge in, because if you charge in, you will essentially cause a mob chaos and you will destroy much of the city, as happens every time the troops enter. What he wanted to do was negotiate a surrender. And if the surrender is negotiated, the city is intact. And it is even said he had grand ambitions to become the next Khalifa. That once he's conquered Vienna and he has all of these troops, maybe he can now rival. If not the Khalifa, without a doubt, he will become the legendary military victor in the history of Islam, the one who conquered Vienna. So he wanted to keep Vienna intact in order to present as a prize. And this was, in hindsight, one of the biggest mistakes. Because if he had attacked, yes, the city would have been damaged, but there's no way 180,000 are going to be defeated by the 20,000. But he refused because he waited for a surrender. And that siege lasted not weeks, months. Months. The people inside were starving. They were dying. But what's going to happen in those months? The disunited European dynasties found a reason to unite. This was one of the biggest blunders that he did. In his arrogance that nobody's going to defeat 180, he never took into account that the lengthy siege would incentivize the other powers to combine their forces, which is what they did. And King Leopold and other kings of the region, the Polish king and the king of Bulgaria and the king of Hungary, they all, for the first time, united. They hated each other. They had civil war with each other. But now they realized we need to unite against the Ottomans. And so they each sent their troops for the first time. This is the beginnings of the EU, literally. The first time there's an EU. They sent their troops to now fight against the Ottomans. And in the confidence of our guy, Kara Mustafa Pasha, he surrounded Vienna. And there was a mountain and a hill that looked onto the side of Poland. And he thought, who's going to come from across the mountain? Who's going to climb the mountain and attack me? He did not station any troops from the side of the mountain. All of the troops facing the city, and the mountain is basically on the back to the left. When a classic blunder 101. It's like the Battle of Uhud when you leave unannounced what's going to happen. Literally blunder one. In hindsight, we can say that, right? And in the next 3 months, a number of flurried negotiations take place, and one particular person, now obviously from our side he's on the other side, but we understand the other side views him as a brilliant military person, and he was, we have to be honest here, from their side, without a doubt, he did an amazing thing. Who is this person? King John Sobieski of Poland, Lithuania. And he's a very interesting character, and he is considered to be one of the icons of European history. He himself, by the way, was not born into royalty, but he was chosen as a king in a time when kings were not chosen. This is one of the rare people. He earns his honor through courage. He earns his respect through integrity. Very rare in that time frame. And that he won battle after battle for his people until when a previous king dies, the next group basically says, you know what? We don't want his family. We want you to be king. So as a military genius, he is made the king of Poland. And because he's not royalty, he actually speaks to the other kings in a very harsh manner. Are you out of your minds? You're fighting over each other and the Ottomans are there. There's a council, literally there's an EU council here. And he's the one who unites the Europeans. The emperor supports him. The Pope supports him. And he's the one who is then given military charge over all the different European groups. So he leads a force of how much? 80,000. 80,000 against 100. Well, by the time he comes there, it's 120. Because 3 months have gone, people have died, people have abandoned. You have to realize not everybody is going to be a loyal servant. People have gone back. So 80 against 120. And in that 80, there was one cavalry, which is considered to be the most legendary in all of European history. They no longer exist, but in that time frame, it was the elite of the elite. These are called the winged hussars. The winged hussars. The winged hussars were the most elite, militarily trained. Every soldier had to be physically fit to a certain degree. Their horses were the best horses. Their armor was the best armor. Their lances were the biggest lances. And then, here's something unique. And when I went to Vienna, I saw their military garb. It's really amazing, to be honest. It is very impressive. The only cavalry in all of human history, they actually wore wings on their backs. Actual wings made out of ostrich feathers and eagle feathers. Every one of them would have 2 wings, like as if they are like birds or angels, right? And the point is, when you saw them and they're coming down, you literally, you're just mesmerized, like what is going on? You're terrified. You have these wings coming forth, and there's the sound, and there's the charging, and there's the trumpets blowing and whatnot. The largest gathering of this contingent, the winged hussars, took place under King John Sobieski of Poland. 20,000 of them. Never in human history had this many come, again because of the Ottomans. And quite literally, the Ottomans were surprised one day to find in the distance this large army coming. They were completely taken by surprise. Can you believe, like, this is a siege going on here? Even then, when our guy Kara Mustafa Pasha sees them, he tells the elite troops of the Ottomans, these were called the Janissaries, the Janissaries. The Janissaries that were guarding the city, he tells them, you remain here. I want to protect the city. The Janissaries were not sent against the winged hussars to the very end. Another massive blunder. Because again, he wants to protect the city intact. So he keeps the troops there. When the King of Poland attacked, the battle lasted 2 full days. And it turned out to be a mini massacre because they were simply not prepared. The soldiers in the Ottoman side were demoralized, whereas the Europeans are coming fresh. The Ottomans have been besieging them for 3 months. They're tired. They're running out of food. The Europeans are coming a bit more fresh now from the, from the plains. And the winged hussars collectively launch a charge. It is said this was the largest charge in all of human history of the cavalry. There's no larger charge than this one. 20,000 horses charging at one time against the Ottomans. And Kara Mustafa Pasha himself had to flee for his life. He left the battlefield. He left in panic. And obviously when the leader leaves, it's going to be complete chaos here. There was a complete butchery and massacre. Tens of thousands of Ottomans died. Kara Mustafa Pasha flees to Bulgaria. The Ottoman Sultan is so disappointed, he issues the hukum of his execution wherever he is found. And so troops go and find him and execute him. That he wasted the entire treasury. He was a complete failure in this regard. And the whole, situation was lost. This is one of those what-if moments. And it took place, as we said, in 1683. Now, why did it fail? Number one, most important reason, overconfidence in yourself and your numbers. Not even planning logistically. Number two, not even taking into account all the routes coming in. He did not leave an entire contingent. He left it unguarded. Number three, he didn't march in immediately. He waited to the very end, wanting to preserve the city. Had he attacked even through one area, there's no way that it would have lasted. And other reasons are given as well. the bottom line, and with this we will conclude inshallah, that Allah Azza wa Jal will protect His ummah in spite of the ups and downs of politics. And this is one of those moments the Muslims attempted to conquer Vienna twice. Both times they failed. The first time was not that big of a deal. The second time, really, it was a very close issue, and Allah willed otherwise. And one interesting quirk now, today, Vienna is 10% Muslim. 10% of Vienna is Muslim. The majority of them are actually Turks and Bosnians. Organically, it happened. And the population is 10% Muslim. In the public schools, 1 out of 3 children is a Muslim. Now, when I say these statistics, and I know this is going to happen here as well, the far right takes these clips and it goes viral. I said something about Sweden over here in our masjid. Swedish news media put my clip on, seen in the millions, but not in a positive way. And to that I say, why are you getting angry at us? What did we do? You're the guys not getting married, or getting married to the wrong gender, not having children. You're the guys not caring about kids. It's not our fault you guys aren't replicating and reproducing. Why are you getting angry at us? Like, what did we do? You're the ones. Nothing is happening, that we're just having normal families and normal kids. So if 1 out of 3 children in Vienna is a Muslim, don't blame us. Go and do other things that are going to replicate that. Really, it boggles my mind, because that clip I did over here about Sweden, I said Malmo's going to be 1/3 Muslim. It literally went viral in the Swedish right media. Swedish politicians tweeted it, like, look, even Americans are mocking and making, like, as an American Muslim I'm saying, right? It's going to happen here. And again, I'm just telling you facts. We're not doing some hocus pocus or magic, black magic. It's just, you guys needed workers. You imported workers because you are too arrogant to clean the streets. Literally, that's what happened. They thought we're going to import the Muslims to do that. And they did. And the Muslims will do any noble job. Cleaning the streets is not ignoble. Doing the manual labor is not ignoble. And so the Muslims came and they did those jobs in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Then they stayed there. Their children are now becoming educated and they're becoming engineers, doctors. It's not anybody's fault. You're the ones that did this now. And then obviously Austria is now having a massive resurgence in what? In Nazi ideology. And out of all European countries, we think France is bad. Austria is the worst when it comes to Islamophobia. It is the worst European country in all of that region. No country, and their party is blatantly Islamophobic. In spite of the fact that 10% of its population in Vienna is Muslim, one of the reasons being it's this history. That because of what happened, nonetheless, Allah Azza wa Jal works in ways beyond our control, and they can have their policies. In the end of the day, the religion of Islam and the people, Muslims, will be wherever there will be humanity, and we will, inshaAllah ta'ala, demonstrate the peace and the beauty of this faith. And even if we lost the Siege of Vienna, Islam did not lose, the Muslims did not lose, Islam will always flourish. So, conclusion, politics goes up and down, battles are won and lost, but the vibrancy of the ummah, the vitality of the ummah, the beauty of the ummah will never be lost. This religion will always be successful ila qiyam as-sa'a. Wa jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.